Bradley Howard had always been known for his curiosity, a trait that often landed him in trouble. So, when a peculiar machine arrived at his workplace, his interest was immediately piqued. The machine was sleek, metallic, and covered in strange symbols. Across its surface was a large red warning label that read, "Do not touch." Yet for Bradley, this was less of a deterrent and more of a challenge. Days passed, and he found himself unable to resist the urge to investigate. Finally, unable to hold back any longer, he approached the machine. The hum of its internal mechanisms was almost hypnotic. Without thinking too much about the consequences, he pressed a series of buttons at random. The machine's screen lit up, displaying a single, cryptic command, "Step inside." Bradley hesitated. What could it mean? But the allure of the unknown was too strong. With a deep breath, he climbed inside. The door hissed shut behind him, and before he could react, the machine roared to life. Lights flashed, the ground beneath him seemed to vanish, and a strange sense of weightlessness overtook him. When the chaos stopped, he stumbled out of the machine, only to find himself in an entirely different world. He was standing in the middle of a dense forest. Towering trees with shimmering, multicolored leaves surrounded him. The air was thick and humid, carrying an unfamiliar but strangely pleasant aroma. Exotic plants glowed faintly, their bioluminescence casting an ethereal light on his surroundings. This was no ordinary forest. Bradley could feel it in his bones. As he took in the alien environment, the sound of rustling leaves caught his attention. His heart raced. He wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman. Her presence was magnetic, her movements graceful yet deliberate. Her eyes locked onto his, as if she had been expecting him. "Welcome to the alien realm, Bradley," she said, her voice smooth and confident. Bradley froze. How did she know his name? His mind raced with questions, but he managed to stammer, "Who? Who are you, and how do you know me?" The woman smirked. "Did you think that machine brought you here by accident? I've been waiting for you. Now, follow me." Still in shock, Bradley found himself compelled to obey. The woman led him through the forest, her steps light and purposeful. As they walked, he tried to get answers, but she ignored his questions, instead talking about herself. "My name is Tixana," she finally revealed as they reached a clearing. In the center stood a large, intricately decorated tent. "I am the guardian of this forest. Every plant, every creature you see here is under my protection. Any harm that befalls them is harm to me." Bradley looked around, trying to make sense of her words. "So, you live here, alone?" Tixana nodded. "I come here periodically to perform rituals, to meditate, and to connect with nature. Here, I am free from the distractions of the outside world." Bradley raised an eyebrow. "Rituals? What kind of rituals?" She smiled enigmatically. "Oh, just the kind that keep me balanced. Yoga, meditation, communing with the energy of the forest. Most of the time, I don't even bother with clothes. You're lucky I dressed for you." Bradley felt his cheeks flush but said nothing. There was something both unnerving and enchanting about her openness. He found himself unable to look away from her, captivated by her confidence and the strange power she seemed to exude. "I can stay and help, if you want," he offered impulsively, unsure of why he was so eager to stay. Tixana raised an eyebrow. "If you're going to stay, you'll need to follow my rules." Without hesitation, Bradley agreed. As if satisfied with his response, Tixana untied the towel she had been wearing, letting it fall to the ground. Completely unbothered by her nudity, she began moving around the clearing, her movements as natural as the forest itself. Bradley averted his eyes, but his curiosity betrayed him. He couldn't help but steal glances, mesmerized by her presence. "Make yourself useful," she said suddenly. "Gather some firewood, we'll need it tonight." Grateful for the distraction, Bradley hurried off to collect sticks. When he returned, they worked together to build a fire. The warm glow of the flames illuminated the clearing, casting long shadows on the trees. Tixana retreated into her tent, leaving Bradley outside. He hesitated, unsure if he should follow her. "What are you waiting for?" Tixana's voice called out, "Come inside." Swallowing his nerves, Bradley stepped into the tent. Inside, Tixana lay face down on a low bed, motioning toward a bottle of oil. "Grab that and start with my feet," she instructed. Bradley obeyed, pouring the oil into his hands and beginning to massage her feet. Slowly, he worked his way up, his hands gliding over her smooth skin. Tixana let out soft sighs of satisfaction, her body relaxing under his touch. After some time, she sat up and took the oil from him. "Your turn," she said with a playful smile. Bradley lay down, and Tixana began massaging him with the same care he had shown her. As her hands moved across his back, she leaned in close, planting small kisses along his shoulders. Bradley felt his tension melt away, his mind clouded by her touch. Unbeknownst to him, Tixana was not merely giving him a massage. She pressed a strange, glowing sap into his skin, its essence seeping into his bloodstream. The sap, extracted from one of the forest's most powerful plants, began to alter his physiology. It enhanced his strength, sharpened his senses, and attuned him to the forest's energy. By morning, Bradley awoke feeling invigorated. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt so alive. When he mentioned this to Tixana, she merely smiled. "The forest has given you a gift," she said cryptically. As days turned into weeks, Bradley adapted to his new environment. He learned to navigate the forest, to understand its rhythms and its secrets. Tixana began to share more about her role as its guardian and the deeper purpose of the forest itself. But their idyllic life was soon interrupted by an unexpected development. Tixana's belly began to swell. At first, Bradley was confused. How could she be pregnant? But Tixana explained that the sap she had introduced into his body had not only altered him, but had also allowed for rapid conception and accelerated growth. Within weeks, she gave birth to 5 extraordinary children. These children were unlike any beings Bradley had ever encountered. Their skin carried faint, glowing patterns that pulsed softly in rhythm with the forest. Their eyes shimmered with unnatural colors, reflecting the light of the bioluminescent plants surrounding them. From the moment they were born, the forest seemed to celebrate their arrival. Trees swayed without wind, and strange creatures emerged from the shadows, observing silently as if to welcome the new life. As Tixana cradled the infants, Bradley felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. These weren't just children, they were a new kind of being, connected intrinsically to the alien forest and its energy. He and Tixana had unknowingly created a bridge between his world and hers. Over the next few days, Bradley discovered just how special their children were. Despite being only days old, they were developing at an astonishing rate. By the end of the first week, they were walking, their movements steady and confident. By the second week, they had begun speaking, their voices harmonizing in a melodic tone that seemed to resonate with the forest itself. But their rapid growth wasn't the only thing remarkable about them. Each child exhibited unique abilities tied to the forest's energy. The eldest, a boy named Leorin, could command the plants to grow and shift at will. The second child, a girl named Zyara, could communicate with the forest's creatures, calming even the most fearsome predators. The twins, Aran and Vexa, had the ability to manipulate light and shadow, creating illusions so vivid they seemed real. And the youngest, a quiet boy named Mithan, possessed an aura of serenity that could heal both physical wounds and emotional pain. Despite the awe and joy their children brought, life in the forest was not without its challenges. Tixana grew increasingly restless, sensing a disturbance in the delicate balance of the forest. She began performing elaborate rituals at night, her voice chanting in an ancient language Bradley couldn't understand. When he asked her about it, she admitted that the forest's energy had become unstable. "Something is changing," she said one evening, staring into the fire. "The forest knows we've altered its course. It accepts the children, but it's also awakening powers that have been dormant for centuries. We must prepare." Bradley couldn't shake the feeling that Tixana was holding something back, but he trusted her instincts. Together, they decided to train their children, teaching them not only how to harness their powers, but also how to protect themselves. Bradley, who had grown stronger and faster thanks to the sap's influence, took on the role of a mentor. He crafted weapons from the forest's materials and taught the children how to defend themselves against potential threats. The children, now the equivalent of teenagers, took to their training with enthusiasm. Leorin constructed towering shelters from living trees, weaving their branches together with a mere gesture. Zyara formed a bond with a pack of wolf-like creatures, who became their loyal protectors. Aaron and Vexa worked in perfect sync, their illusions confusing and disorienting potential enemies during mock battles. And Mython, ever the peacemaker, ensured that injuries were swiftly healed after every training session. But their peaceful life couldn't last forever. One night, as the family slept, a strange phenomenon occurred. The forest's glow dimmed, and an unnatural chill settled over the land. Tixana awoke in a panic, her connection to the forest screaming in alarm. She hurried outside, where she was met with a terrifying sight. A dark rift had opened in the sky above, and from it emerged shadowy figures unlike anything she had ever seen. The figures moved with an eerie grace, their forms shifting and flickering as if they were made of smoke. Tixana immediately recognized them. "The Void-born," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They are the guardians of balance, here to punish those who disrupt it." Bradley stepped outside, his instincts kicking in. "What do they want?" "They want the children," Tixana said grimly. "They see them as a threat to the natural order. We cannot let them take them." Before Bradley could respond, the Void-born descended, their smoky tendrils reaching out toward the tent. Tixana raised her hands, summoning a barrier of energy to protect her family. The Void-born recoiled but began to circle, probing for weaknesses. "Wake the children," Tixana commanded. "They must fight. This is their destiny." Bradley rushed into the tent, shaking the children awake. They sprang into action, their training kicking in immediately. Leorin and Zyara stood at the forefront, the former summoning walls of vines and thorns to block the Void-born's advance, while the latter called upon her animal allies for support. Aaron and Vexa used their illusions to confuse and misdirect the invaders, creating phantom warriors that drew their attention away. Mython, though hesitant, stepped forward and extended his calming aura, momentarily halting the Void-born's aggression. Bradley and Tixana joined the fray, their combined efforts bolstering the children's abilities. The battle was fierce, the air filled with flashes of light and the sounds of snarling beasts. Slowly but surely, the family began to push the Void-born back. But just as it seemed they were gaining the upper hand, the largest of the Void-born stepped forward, its presence suffocating. It raised a shadowy hand, and the energy of the forest seemed to drain away. Tixana fell to her knees, her connection severed. "Run!" she screamed at Bradley and the children, but Bradley refused. He stood his ground, something primal awakening within him. The sap in his veins surged, and his body began to glow with the same bioluminescent patterns as his children. He felt a surge of strength and understanding as the forest itself lent him its power. "You won't take them," Bradley growled, his voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance. The family rallied around him, their combined strength forming a blazing aura that pushed back the Void-born. Together, they unleashed a final, devastating attack that sealed the rift and banished the invaders. For a moment, there was silence. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the energy of the battle dissipated. Then, like a sigh of relief, the trees swayed gently, and the soft glow of the bioluminescent plants returned. The creatures of the forest emerged cautiously, their eyes filled with curiosity and awe as they observed the family. Bradley collapsed to his knees, exhausted from the fight. His glowing patterns dimmed, and he looked at his hands, which still tingled with the remnants of the forest's power. Tixana knelt beside him, her expression one of both pride and concern. "You've become more than human," she whispered. "The forest has claimed you fully." Bradley didn't respond immediately. His mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. The power he had felt was intoxicating, but it also frightened him. It wasn't just strength, it was the essence of the forest itself, alive within him. The children gathered around, their expressions a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Leorin spoke first, his voice steady. "What were those things, Mother? Why did they come for us?" Tixana sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "The Void-born are ancient beings, guardians of balance across the realms. By creating you, by merging human and forest energy, we disrupted that balance. They came to erase what they see as an anomaly." Zyara frowned, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Are we a mistake?" Tixana immediately shook her head, pulling her daughter into an embrace. "No, my love, you are a gift, a bridge between worlds. But with that gift comes responsibility." As the family rested, Tixana began to explain more about the forest's ancient history. She revealed that the land was not just alive but conscious, an entity that had existed for millennia. The forest had chosen her as its guardian long ago, granting her the power to nurture and protect it. But by creating life with Bradley, they had unknowingly awakened forces that had been dormant for centuries. "The forest is changing," Tixana said, her gaze distant. "And so must we. The Void-born will not be the last to come. Others will sense the shift in power. Some may seek to destroy us, while others may wish to claim the forest for themselves." Bradley stood, his exhaustion replaced by determination. "Then we'll be ready. This is our home now, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect it." Over the following weeks, the family worked tirelessly to fortify their sanctuary. Leorin expanded their living area, creating towering structures woven from living trees that were both beautiful and impenetrable. Zyara strengthened her bond with the forest creatures, building an army of loyal protectors. Arin and Vexa honed their illusionary powers, crafting elaborate traps and defenses to confuse any intruders. Mithun, though hesitant to fight, used his healing abilities to ensure the family remained strong and resilient. Tixana, meanwhile, began exploring deeper into the forest, seeking ancient knowledge that could help them in the battles to come. She uncovered long-forgotten ruins hidden beneath the dense foliage, where she found inscriptions and artifacts that hinted at a larger, interconnected web of life across multiple realms. One evening, as the family gathered around a roaring fire, Tixana shared her discoveries. "This forest is but one of many gateways," she explained. "There are other realms, each with its own guardians and energies. The Void-born were only the first to take notice of us. If we're to survive, we must learn to navigate these realms." Bradley nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "Then we need to prepare not just to defend ourselves but to explore. If there are allies out there, we need to find them." The children listened intently, their eyes alight with determination. It was clear that their family's purpose had grown beyond mere survival. They were no longer just inhabitants of the forest, they were its champions, chosen to protect it and unlock its mysteries. But as they planned their next steps, a strange phenomenon occurred. The youngest child, Mithun, who had always been the quietest and most introspective, began to glow faintly. His siblings stepped back in awe as a soft hum filled the air. "What's happening to him?" Bradley asked, his voice tinged with worry. Tixana's eyes widened. "The forest is speaking through him." Mithun's voice, usually soft and hesitant, took on an otherworldly tone. "The balance must be restored. Seek the Elder Grove. There you will find the answers you seek." As the glow faded, Mithun collapsed into Bradley's arms, unconscious but unharmed. Tixana's expression was a mixture of fear and hope. "The Elder Grove," she murmured. "It's a place of immense power, but it's also perilous. If we go there, there's no turning back." Bradley met her gaze, his jaw set. "Then we'll go, together." The family spent the next few days preparing for the journey. Tixana consulted the ancient artifacts she had discovered, piecing together a map that would guide them to the Elder Grove. The children gathered supplies, their excitement tempered by the gravity of their mission. As they set out, the forest seemed to come alive around them, guiding their path with glowing markers and whispering whines. Bradley couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not just by the forest, but by something far greater. Each step they took seemed to echo with purpose, the dense underbrush parting before them as if the forest itself was ensuring their safe passage. Leorin led the group, his connection to the forest allowing him to sense the safest routes. Zyara kept pace beside him, her sharp eyes scanning for any signs of danger. Aran and Vexa stayed at the back, creating subtle illusions to mask their trail, while Mithin walked close to Tixana, his small frame glowing faintly in the dim light. As they moved deeper into the forest, the atmosphere began to change. The vibrant, welcoming glow of the plants dimmed, replaced by an eerie bioluminescent blue. The air grew thick, almost tangible, as if they were walking through the breath of some immense, sleeping creature. Bradley felt a shiver run down his spine. "Does it always feel like this?" he asked Tixana in a low voice. "No," she admitted, her tone uncharacteristically tense. "We're entering the ancient Vale. This part of the forest hasn't been touched in centuries, not even by me." The ancient Vale was unlike anything Bradley had ever seen. Towering trees with gnarled roots twisted together, their trunks covered in moss that shimmered like stars. Strange creatures with translucent skin darted through the shadows, their movements almost ghostly. Bradley swore he could hear whispers, faint and fleeting, as if the forest itself was trying to speak to him. It was Zyara who first noticed the tracks. She knelt by the ground, her fingers tracing the faint impressions in the dirt. "These aren't animal tracks," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something or someone has been through here recently." Tixana frowned, her eyes narrowing. "We're not alone." The group pressed on, their senses heightened. The forest seemed to grow darker with every step, and the whispers grew louder, more distinct. Bradley could almost make out words now, though they were in a language he didn't understand. Suddenly, Leorin stopped, holding up a hand. "Something's ahead," he said, his voice tight. The family froze as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was humanoid, but distinctly alien, its skin covered in intricate, glowing patterns that shifted and changed like living tattoos. Its eyes were orbs of pure light, and it carried a staff made of twisted wood and crystal. The figure regarded them silently for a moment before speaking in a deep, resonant voice. "You tread upon sacred ground. Why have you come?" Tixana stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We seek the Elder Grove," she said. "The forest itself has guided us here." The figure tilted its head, its glowing eyes narrowing. "Few are chosen to walk this path, fewer still survive it. The Elder Grove tests all who enter." Bradley stepped up beside Tixana. "We're ready for whatever test comes our way. The forest called us here for a reason." The figure studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Very well, follow me." It turned and began to walk, its movements fluid and deliberate. The family followed, their footsteps echoing in the unnaturally quiet forest. The journey was long and arduous, the path winding through treacherous terrain, and strange phenomena. Time itself seemed to warp, moments stretching and contracting unpredictably. Finally, they arrived at the Elder Grove. It was a massive clearing, the ground covered in soft, glowing moss. At the center stood an enormous tree, its trunk wider than a house and its branches reaching so high they disappeared into the sky. The air was thick with energy, and Bradley felt it vibrating in his chest. The guide turned to them. "The elder tree is the heart of this realm. It will judge you. Step forward, one by one, and present yourselves." Leorin went first, his hand resting on the tree's bark. A wave of light passed over him, and the tree seemed to hum with approval. One by one, the children followed, each receiving the tree's silent acknowledgement. When it was Bradley's turn, he hesitated. He felt the weight of the forest's expectations on his shoulders. But as he placed his hand on the tree, a surge of energy coursed through him. Memories not his own flooded his mind, visions of ancient battles, great sacrifices, and the eternal cycle of life and death within the forest. "You are the bridge," a voice echoed in his mind, deep and ancient. "But bridges bear the weight of two worlds. Are you ready to shoulder this burden?" "Yes," Bradley said, his voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes." The tree's glow intensified, enveloping him in a cocoon of light. When it faded, he felt different, stronger, more attuned to the forest's rhythms. Finally, Tixana approached the tree. Unlike the others, she didn't hesitate. The moment she touched the bark, the entire clearing erupted in light, and the voice spoke again. The guardian has returned, but the path ahead is fraught with peril. The balance remains fragile. The tree's branches began to move, weaving together to form a doorway of light. The guide gestured toward it. Your journey does not end here. Beyond this gate lies the true test. Step through, and you will face the forces that seek to destroy what you have built. Bradley tightened his grip on Tixana's hand. Their children stood close, their glowing patterns pulsating in unison, a silent testament to their unity. Taking a deep breath, Bradley stepped forward with his family, together crossing the shimmering threshold. The moment they passed through the gate, a cold, weightless sensation enveloped them. They found themselves standing on an expansive, floating platform of crystalline energy, suspended in a void of swirling colors. The air was thick with tension, and faint whispers echoed around them, growing louder with each passing second. "What is this place?" Zyara asked, her voice trembling as she clung to her mother. "This is the veil between," Tixana replied, her voice steady despite the unease in her eyes. "A liminal space where realities collide. Here, the true nature of our bond and purpose will be tested." As Tixana spoke, the whispers coalesced into a deafening roar. Shapes began to form in the swirling void, vague, menacing figures that radiated malice. These were not the void-born they had faced before. They were something older, something primal, their forms shifting constantly as if they couldn't decide on a single shape. One of the entities stepped forward, its presence suffocating. Its voice resonated through the void like thunder. "You have defied the natural order. You seek to bridge what must remain separate. This cannot be allowed." Bradley stepped in front of his family, his hands glowing with the forest's energy. "We're not here to destroy the balance. We're here to protect it." The entity's form flickered, its faceless head tilting as if studying him. "Prove it." With a wave of its amorphous hand, the platform beneath them splintered into multiple sections, each family member stranded on their own floating island. Bradley reached out in panic, but the distance between them grew impossibly vast in an instant. "Face your fears," the entity commanded, its voice echoing from every direction. "Only then will you understand the price of what you seek." On his isolated platform, Bradley was plunged into a vision of his former life on Earth. He saw himself in his lab, working tirelessly, isolated from the world. The scene shifted to moments of regret, missed opportunities, lost connections, an annoying sense of purposelessness. Then the vision turned darker. He saw his family in the forest, surrounded by flames, their cries for help drowned out by the laughter of unseen forces. The fear of failing them, of losing everything they had built, gripped his heart like a vice. "You fear being powerless," a voice said, soft yet piercing. "But power without purpose is a curse. What will you sacrifice to protect them?" Bradley clenched his fists, the glow of the forest energy surging around him. "I'll sacrifice everything if I have to, but I won't let fear control me." The vision shattered, and Bradley found himself back on his platform, the void now calm and still. Tixana stood in an ancient version of the forest, untouched by time. She was alone, her connection to the forest severed. The vibrant life around her faded, replaced by decay and silence. A shadowy figure emerged, taking the form of her younger self. "You've become a prisoner of your duty," it said. "Without the forest, who are you? What have you sacrificed for your power?" Tixana hesitated, her heart heavy with the weight of centuries spent protecting the forest. But then she thought of her family, of Bradley and their children, and of the life they had created together. "I am more than a guardian," she said, her voice firm. "I am a mother, a partner, and a part of something greater. My duty is no longer a burden, it's a choice." The shadow dissolved, and the forest around her bloomed once more. Each child faced a vision tailored to their unique fears. Leorin confronted his fear of failure, seeing a future where his family was torn apart by his inability to lead. Zyara faced her fear of rejection, witnessing a world where the creatures of the forest turned against her. Aaron and Vexa were forced to choose between their bond as twins and their individual identities, while Mithan, the youngest, faced a vision of isolation, a life where his gentle nature made him an outcast. One by one, they overcame their trials, drawing strength from their bond as siblings and their love for their parents. As the family reunited on a single platform, the entities reappeared, their forms less hostile but no less imposing. "You have faced your fears and proven your resolve," the lead entity said, "but the balance remains fragile. Will you accept the burden of guardianship, knowing the trials that await?" Bradley stepped forward, his family standing proudly beside him. "We accept. Together, we'll protect the balance and ensure that this world, and all others, can thrive." The entities nodded, their forms dissolving into light that merged with the platform. The void around them shifted, becoming brighter and more harmonious. The doorway of light reappeared, signaling the end of their trial. As they stepped back into the forest, the air felt lighter, the energy around them more vibrant. The elder tree greeted them with a soft hum, its branches glowing warmly. "You have been tested and found worthy," it said. "Your bond is your strength. Protect it, nurture it, and the balance will endure." The family returned to their sanctuary, forever changed by their journey. They knew the trials weren't over, but they also knew they could face anything as long as they stood together. And so, the guardians of the forest began a new chapter, their destiny intertwined with the fate of all realms.